Hello, everyone. This is Arkasia with APACHE, and I'm here tonight with Durenda Wilson. She's one of our speakers for our 2021 Stand Firm Convention. We're really excited to have her coming up here in March, and she's here with us tonight to kind of chit-chat a little bit and give us a little glimpse into some of her workshops. So welcome, Durenda. We're glad you're here with us tonight.
I am excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So let's just kind of get started with things. I know, actually, I've heard of you a little bit, but not too much. I think last year you spoke at ICHE's women's conference that they had, the little
Yes.
women's retreat that they had. So that's how I'm familiar with you a little bit. But I know that some of our listeners here are not that familiar. So why don't you give us a little bit of your background and your family experience here so we can kind of get to know you a little bit.
Sure. Okay. So I'm married to Darryl. We have been married for 31 years. We have 8 kids, ages 16 to 29. She's almost 30. We have 6 grandkids. Our fourth child will be getting married. Not number 4, he's number 6, but the 4 out of our 8 kids will be married as of September. So we have a couple of daughter-in-laws, a couple of son-in-laws, and we've been homeschooling for over 25 years.
Wow, that's great. That's awesome. I've been homeschooling myself for 17 years. So my oldest is 20.
Awesome.
So I have a
That's
little
great.
bit of the high school experience, and she's actually in her last year of college too. So a little bit of the college thing, but I still have some younger ones. But it is also making me realize that my time is short with them. When you have some that have left the nest, it kind of becomes more of a reality.
It really does. It really does. And all of a sudden you realize even more clearly what's really important.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true. So that actually kind of leads me into our first question here tonight is homeschooling has been such a blessing for my family. So with your 25 years of experience, what has blessed you the most about homeschooling?
I would definitely have to say growing relationships with our kids and between our kids. Because now that we've got 7 graduated and they're all out doing their, adult things, it's amazing how they still remain bonded. They may not even talk may not talk even that frequently. Certain ones might not talk to, but when they get together or when they do talk, it's like no time has passed and there's just such a bond between all of them. So I would say the relationship piece of it. Also, as the parents, we have found, as our kids have become adults, we've found them to just be great friends and confidants and people we can share our heart with who know us so well. So there's so many things we don't have to explain. And, so it's just, I would definitely say we sort of just have our own tribe. Obviously, we have other friends outside the family, but we really, really, just adore the relationships that we have with our kids.
Definitely. We also have our own tribe. You kind of saw my own tribe some behind me there. Told her that we're going to be having an interview tonight. But that's okay because, we're homeschooling and things just happen. We just kind of have to roll with the punches.
It's real life.
That's great. So I love the title of one of your workshops that I saw. It was called Unhurried Homeschooling and Why We Need to Slow Down. As homeschoolers, it is so tempting to do it all. You see all the great curriculum out there. You see all of the different activities that you can go to. So what are some tips that you can give us that kind of slow down a little bit, pick and choose what we do, and why that's important to kind of slow down?
Well, I would say that one thing would be to remember your mission. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why did you decide to homeschool? What is your long-term vision for your kids? And to use those as the filter for your activities. For our family, I really wanted our kids to have a childhood. I wanted them to be able to have time to just explore their interests, do things on their own. So I always gave them margin time in the afternoon, pretty much every day to do that. And it was amazing how much came out of that time as the years passed by. But really, I think it can be easy to load on activities. A lot of times it can be because we want to do them or we think they're good things, but sometimes it's rooted in fear that we're
Mm,
not doing enough, fear that our kids aren't going to get enough experiences. And that's where we need to just remember that so much of what our kids learn in family life and in everyday life, living life alongside of each other, is actually the foundation of what our kids need as adults. And so don't allow family to revolve around school, but let school revolve around family.
mm.
And so that's always been sort of a theme in our house. And so when we started to see that not being true, we had to go back to being true to what we really, really wanted for our kids and what we knew, what we felt like was important in the big picture for them.
Definitely, definitely. I like that. You mentioned some good things there, and it kind of made me think of character training and how important your homeschooling journey, you do a lot of character training. And that kind
We
of leads
do.
me into our next question that we have going on here is, this past year has been stressful because of the pandemic. There's been uncertainty out there, and, just realizing the uncertainty of life, and things are just not normal right now for
Right.
a lot of people. And so in homeschooling, I know that we have a lot of opportunities to encourage strength and peace and perseverance in our families, and to
Mhm.
kind of teach that in our kids. So what is one way that we can actually actively implement those things and try to teach that for our kids?
Well, I think it's just being faithful to kind of what I mentioned before, building a strong family. I think that is probably one of the main ways that our kids learned so much of their character, through nurturing sibling relationships. And um, it, it really was family life that helped them learn strength, peace, perseverance. And the thing that's really the trick with that is not to overschedule, like we mentioned before in the previous
Mm-hmm.
question. The problem is when we overschedule, there is no room for deeper conversations, for a chance to
Mm-hmm.
notice certain things. If we're constantly in a hurry and our kids are constantly being pushed, there's a lot of anxiety and stress that comes with that. And it does not lend itself to healthy relationships. It doesn't lend itself to taking the time to talk through things. For instance, when we're dealing with sibling relationships, we often see the bickering and the fighting as an obstacle to what we're trying to accomplish or what we're wanting our
Mm-hmm.
kids to accomplish. When the reality is that is actually an opportunity. Every time our kids have conflict, and I'm not saying every time they have conflict, you have to have a 20-minute conversation, but you need to have time to, just even just a few minutes to think through whether that is a situation that you need to take the time to walk through with your kids and talk through with your kids. And it's hard to make that choice when you've got to be someplace or you've got the
Mm,
next thing on the agenda that needs to get done. And this is what I talk about in my book, The Unhurried Homeschooler. I talk a lot about just putting margin in our days, and so that we can do the most important thing. We don't want to settle for good when we can have the best, and we want
right.
the what's best for our families and what's best for our kids and what God wants for them. And in order to know that, um, we can't be frazzled, and we
Mm-hmm.
need to be we need to take some time, hit the pause button, listen for the Lord's voice, listen for his direction. And the more we do that, the more we'll see the opportunities to encourage that strength and that peace and that perseverance in our kids, all those character qualities that we want to see.
Right. Right.
And
I
and
think
don't forget, the
yes.
character qualities happen over time. I just want to emphasize that because I know that
Yes.
we can often think, our kids are 6 or 7 or whatever, and we're just like, okay, we're going to get this character quality down. And I'm just going to tell you, it's a journey. You're gonna
Yes, it
do this
is a
10,000
journey.
times before they get it. Some things before they actually get them, and some things you won't know that they got until they're on their own.
And
And
lots
once
of
they're on their
practice too. Lots of practice
yes,
opportunities.
practice, exactly. And then as adults, all of a sudden, all this stuff comes to the surface, and you're like, I did not think he actually heard me all these years, because it seemed as though he was not getting this character
Right.
thing. And I've seen this happen with all of our kids in different areas. And then all of a sudden it's there and you realize, oh my goodness, they actually did get it. So
Mhm.
so don't lose heart. That's my point. Just
Those
for the
days when
long
it seems to
haul.
be a struggle, don't realize that that's not the end yet.
That's right. The story isn't over yet.
That is so true. That is so true. We're going to be leading into some talking about some sibling relationships and stuff like that. And one thing I was wanting to kind of really dive in with this question, because I love this question. That's one of the things that I really try to work with my kids. And sometimes I feel like it's a struggle. And then other times I'm thinking like, well, my oldest is away in college right now. And then the second one in line is my 17-year-old daughter. And she takes time to sit there and call her sister, who's not living here right now, who's at college. So I take those moments and think, well, I must be doing something right. We must have been able to work at something, because, one of them is off to college and the other one's still communicating with her, and they don't hate each other, which is really good.
Yes, yes.
So I think one of my favorite workshops that you're going to be doing is nurturing sibling relationships. And as a mom of 5 and homeschooling for almost 17 years now, I really do feel like there's times that I'm struggling with this. I want my kids to develop strong sibling bonds that will last into their adulthood. So what are some ways that I can nurture the relationships between my kiddos, but at the same time, I want to nurture those relationships, but I don't want to intervene all the time, because I know that there's going to be times that I need to let them work it out between themselves. So when do I step in, or when do I let them work it out? Kind of where's the balance at?
Actually, that is something I will be talking about in my workshop. So that there's a few different ways you can go, and I kind of walk you through the steps of if this, then this kind of thing. I will say that one of the best ways that we can help nurture sibling relationships is to make sure that they're spending time together, that's actually a priority, because it can be easier to let our children play with someone else's child, the neighbor kid or a friend. And pretty soon our kids aren't spending actually any time or very little time together. So we want to make sure that they're spending time together, that is a priority. We want to be intentional in that way. And then also reminding them that these relationships are long-term. This is something that I said to our kids over and over again. You're going to have friends. They're going to come in your life. You might have 1 or 2 friends that end up being lifelong friends, but pretty much every friend is going to be a seasonal friend. They're going to come in, they're going to go out. But these siblings, they are there forever. When I would tell them, when dad and I pass away, you will have each other to lean on, and you'll have each other to talk to and each other to pray with. And that's why we're working so hard to build these relationships. But as far as knowing when to step in, I typically, my first gut level answer to this is when the communication begins to break down significantly, and there is it's going round and round and round, and there's disrespectful words being said. And because words are important, words matter. The Bible says, it talks about words, that life and death is in the power of the tongue. And so when we hear our children starting to just speak death instead of life to each other, and they're not self-correcting, that's when we want to step in and just, because we're basically saying, what we're doing when we do that is we're saying, this is a boundary in a relationship. You do not talk to other people like this. And so that's not just about the sibling. That's about, their marriage, their friendships, their jobs, all of those things. They need to know where that line is. And so I would say that if, the conversation is just going south and they're not self-correcting, then that's when we need to step in and take a pause and separate, or whatever the next steps are. And I talk about that in my workshop.
Well, that's definitely a workshop I'll be looking forward to. And I love how you said intentional. I mean, I've tried to implement that word in my kids' lives. I'm like, we need to be intentional about what we do and how we treat each other, because it's so important, to just.
It is.
Yeah, definitely.
It's absolutely important because we are preparing them through those relationships. We are preparing them for their marriage,
Mm-hmm.
for friendships, for relationships in church, relationships outside of church, relationships at work, all their interactions. And you don't really think about it when your children are younger. But when they step out into adulthood and they begin their lives, you realize over the course of their adult life, which is more time than the time we have with them, right? It's a lot
Mm-hmm.
more time as an adult than as a kid. They connect with, interact with, communicate with, and affect what thousands and people over the
Mm-hmm.
years. And so when we're investing that kind of just mindfulness about what a healthy relationship looks like and sounds like, we affect all of those lives
Right.
by investing in our kids and investing in teaching them what it looks like to have a healthy relationship.
Definitely, definitely. Our kids are a great investment. And I love the fact that I've been able to invest in my kids with homeschooling. And you mentioned about teaching them about relationships too. And one of the most important relationships that we're teaching them about is a relationship with God. And you have to be an
Absolutely.
intentional with your relationship with God, just like you have to be intentional with your relationships with other people. So those are some great thoughts. I love it, Durenda, and I'm already looking forward to a lot of your workshops that you're going to be doing. I will be peeking in on them when in between my duties I have with Apache. But I do want to thank you for being with us tonight. And the workshops that you're doing here, let me run through them real quick, is Unhurried Homeschooling, Why We Need to Slow Down, Chores, Why They Are Essential in Homeschooling, Homeschooling Purpose or Performance. Oh, I think that's going to be a good one too, because homeschoolers, a lot of times, at least homeschooling moms, and I've struggled with this where we try to compare ourselves to other homeschooling moms. So that's definitely going to be a great workshop too. Homeschooling boys, what do they really need? And then, of course, my favorite that I already mentioned, nurturing sibling relationships. Some great workshops.
Right.
I'm really looking forward to those. So we want to remind everybody that registration for the Apache 2021 Homeschool Convention is currently open. It's Stand Firm Homeschool Convention, March 12th and 13th. You can sign up on our website at apachecentralillinois.org. And actually, we're going to be doing some giveaways every week, and you are going to be donating a book to give away.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
the Unhurried Homeschooler that you're going to be giving away for.
Yeah.
I believe that's going to be our next week's giveaway. So I'm excited about that. So if you have not signed up for our convention, please do so, because if you do, you could possibly win that awesome book that I probably will be stopping by your booth and buying during homeschool during the convention weekend. Thanks, Durenda, for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. It was great to talk with you.